As Stefan said, I'm Vítek Urbanec, came from Finland, where I work at Unity Technologies. Unity Technologies as the makers of the Unity 3D engine. So, who's familiar with Unity? Who knows? Yeah, awesome. There's some hands. All right, amazing. So we created the amazing 3D and 2D engine that you can use to build your games and also build all sorts of visualizations. And you might think that why does Unity have SREs if they're building an engine which is a host-based thing, right? So the thing is that in the editor, there's a built-in feature that allows you to actually make money on these games, like earn money. If you're a small developer, you can display ads within your games, and that's how you can generate profit, even if you build like a small game. And that ad showing business is actually what is largely happening in the Helsinki office, right? We do have people that are looking into programming graphics as well, but mainly there's a team that does all the smart stuff behind displaying the ads and making sure it runs. And for that, we have SRE team. Of course, we're not tied only to this monetization part. We aspire to work as an SRE team as a service for other teams in Unity as well. So, a little bit about me. I come from infrastructure background. I'm an ex-storage person, which means I have very specific concept of reliability that very well resonates with what Yanni was talking about in the initial talk about the failing disk in a server. Yeah, I can relate to that. Basically, storage reliability was my bread and butter for quite a long part of my career. I've done solutions architecture, so others don't have to, because that's connected like to selling stuff, and that's a dirty job. I've automated myself out of a job once, which I consider quite an achievement. But the automation was actually very hacky and horrible. That's why I get to keep the job, because actually no one else than me could use it. It was rather pointless, but it was really good exercise in automating stuff that is very resilient to automation. And I love data and talking to people, and I love playing guitar and Doom 2. So why this topic? Why, so just a disclaimer first. I'm not representing, I'm not speaking for Unity. I'm speaking for myself, for my experience, for my opinions. And these opinion talks are like, it's one of those opinion talks. It's not describing a technical situation. It is the learnings or the stuff that I've learned working as an SRE in multiple companies and working or fulfilling the SRE function without having the title in other companies. So it's basically, I do have only background in big companies. I've never been blessed with the opportunity to work for a small team. So my professional network of friends are also corporate people. And when we were talking about the SRE adoption, we found very common patterns in our experience. And I summarized them into a talk, and I won a free ticket to SREcon, which is pretty neat. So the situation to me, if I look at the corporate adoption of SRE, it feels like this to me, right? It is basically the corporate or the big company identifies, I have my operations people and my infrastructure people and my developers, and there is this like skills gap, and there is work that needs to happen in between them, because you have that, like if you're solving problems, reliability issues, or stability issues, or performance issues, it is a volleyball. It's like the developers send off, like our application is timing out, and the ops people ping it back. Well, it's because like everything we have is green, your stuff is bad. And they ping it back, like, do you have a ticket for that? And there is lots of back and forth happening. And it feels kind of like this. They realized, okay, we need to transition to SRE right now because SRE is all the good stuff. So what happens, they rename their operations team to SRE and expect the magic to start happening because there is a lot of good stuff written about SRE, the books and all that. And imagine the situation from a developer perspective. The developer is used to working in an ops-oriented environment. It's like driving somewhere and suddenly he finds like, stop, there's a roadblock, we're renaming ops to SRE, so just hold them back and like, why are you even like fixing that? Why are you fixing that bit of road, right? It was okay before. So he takes a detour, or she takes a detour, and finds out, well, actually this detour is faster and I can pave my bit of a way. And then basically the detour is used as a main production, and then when the ops is finally transitioned to SRE, nobody really cares that it's there because they have their way of doing things. Seriously though, the problem, as I see it, is the checkbox and buzzword-driven adoption. Because Google is doing that, we're gonna do it. And there is no analysis whatsoever if it's fitting our working style, if it's fitting our culture. Also, ops don't scale gets thrown around a lot without context, without actually, because this is a meaningless statement. Ops don't scale. It scaled until now. It was okay for now. And also, look, there's a manual for it. The Google people published this awesome book, How to Do It. How difficult can it be if you already have a book for how to do it, right? And with the adoption, like with basically the renaming of people who have absolutely no expectations or don't know what's going to happen, like they've been ops until now they're SREs. The ignored fact is that the company already has SREs, right? The company already has developers that are more focused on like fighting backlog, fighting the technical debt, that the developers that are more inclined to infrastructure, that are excited to learn about infrastructure, not the operations people. And the other fact is that shifting basically the operations people to be SREs or moving them to SREs needs a lot of time and effort because the skill set of an SRE and of an operations person are like they're different. The technical part is something that I would say stays the same. But there are additional skills and a lot of these skills are soft skills and communication skills and negotiation skills that the operations need to learn first before they become SREs. And the third fact, there's nothing wrong with ops or sysads. I don't know how it's in your circles or in your networks with the people that you communicate with, but it seems sometimes that being in operations or being a sysadmin has this unpleasant stigma, right? You don't have to transition to DevOps-oriented environments or you don't have to transition to SREs if the old operations model is working out for you. Because if you do that transition without the analysis, what kind of value you're getting out of that, you're just gonna be messing life up for a whole lot of people. So technically, renaming ops to SREs gives you the situation that you have the same team, same skills, same culture. There's a cooler name, but there's higher expectations, right? If you suddenly start calling the team SREs, people are like, oh, okay, so now you actually can help me with my application infrastructure. Now I can actually help me with improving my service, my code, on not only caring about the infrastructure side, but also transitioning to the software development. Are the people ready for that? The operations people? Not at this point, right? But the name has already changed. The Rubicon has been crossed. So what makes this transition tough? Probably, this is my opinion, my assumption of the situation. SREs, or the newly renamed SREs, they need to level up on soft skills. Because the old operations model that you have when something is broken, you send a ticket and the operations will somehow fix that. That's well established. You don't have to like talk about that. You already have that model, it's already working, so the tech ops or the operations people don't have to talk to people and say like, hey, like, can I fix this for you? You know, that comes with the proactive workload. So they need to skill up on that, and that's not easy, that takes time, right? I'm skilling up on my communication skills like all the time. SREs need to understand application development, and I'm not saying, I don't mean like understanding a programming language or mastering a programming language. It's about understanding what kind of workflow the developers have, so you can actually help them out. The cycles of software development, where how they are pushed, what is their push for new features, when do they have a new release, and so on. And SRE, of course, it's not all dependent on the behavior of SREs. It needs a specific culture to function in. Like, it's not only about how the team is behaving, but it's also about how receptive the culture of the company is. That means if I'm going to go to the developers and say, hey, this caused an incident for a third time in a row, perhaps we should look at that, why this is, or look at this problem, it's been on your backlog for some time. I need to have that, like, they need to receive that well, because otherwise, they just tell me, oh, just go on. Because it's their baby, it's their software, they're developing that. They have this special, emotional attachment to that. So, if these things, these concerns and these problems are not addressed, you find yourself in something I call the SRE hell, which means there is no connection, no communication going on with the developers. Right? The SREs kind of because the developers have learned to operate their own environments. The operations kind of are left out of the loop, and they have no connection to the devs. They're not getting feedback on the toolkit. They're not, engaging in communication. That means that they start building, let's say from tooling perspective, they start building like science fair projects that are from their perspective, they're important, but they don't have that check with reality if that's what the developers are demanding. And the third problem is that they're not particularly feeling useful in that situation. When you have developers that are already capable of mastering their infrastructure, what do you need ops for in that sense? Yeah, right. So, how to solve this? And I found a solution that even rhymes. If you want to fix the mess, go and join the devs. Right? Any infrastructure person knows that there's more problems happening on the application side than the infrastructure side, right? And there is, and some tech ops people feel like very good about that they have less problems than the application developers. However, that's uncomparable. Application developers are building new stuff from scratch, right? Infrastructure is very, very well documented, and it's something that is like globally established. So if you want to fix the hard problems, go and join developers and help them out. Actually, like learn to bridge that gap, master a programming language to a degree where you can actually go and talk to the developers like one-to-one and saying, hey, like how you're handling database connections here in this module, it's unsustainable. And basically start transitioning more towards the development. So, as a summary, if you want to be reasonable as SRE, first, learn and get educated. And this is in the specific, environment that I've described as when you've been just renamed from ops to SRE. Learn and get educated. The get educated part is important because don't only learn what you'd like to learn, but get educated by people who are experienced in that about what is actually needed for the optimal user experience there. Build inclusive attitude. Like, no more of that volleyball of operations and then ping it back to developers. I've seen a lot of that stuff throughout my life. And you need to build kind of like in the environment. That's what DevOps means for me. Like, everyone's on the same boat. We're kind of building the same stuff. Treat tooling as a product. If you're building tools, make sure the user experience is awesome. Because even though the developers are going to be using it, or internal customers are going to be using that, you cannot compromise for quality. That's how companies end up with 4 tools for one problem, right? I don't like this tool, I'm going to build a different one. Well, like, communicate, talk about that. Why is it bad? Why doesn't it work? And have proper product management for that. It's very important because it decreases the frustration. And look for a value to provide, not a box to fit into. If you have there's tons of definitions of SRE I've heard from various people, and I think they're all right. Because the people that have different definitions than is the standard one or the most repeated one, they are actually thinking in a concept of their company, what's useful for them. So that is a very positive thing for me. And if you're in that situation where you want to build good relationship with your developers, if you're an operations person and you want to transition and fix the hard problems from the application perspective, I want to leave you with this last message that you can open with the developers, that the reliability is about motivation. You need to be motivated to have reliable systems. The reliability doesn't just happen. It's an output of human work. And basically what Yaniv said in the initial talk, you have these 2 forces, innovation and reliability. The motivation for innovation is very clear, right? You need to compete, you need to be quick to market, and all that. However, reliability, the motivation for reliability it can be very, very different, and it varies from engineer to engineer. Someone doesn't want to be woken up during the night. That's why they're writing reliable code during the day. Someone wants to learn and be a better engineer. Someone gets a cash bonus for that, right? The motivation is different, but for me, from my opinion, it's the key how to actually control reliability. Okay, that's the end of the talk. If you have any questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions, I can pass on the microphone, or you can go up there. Anyone?
Thanks very much. Very interesting. We're at the very start of a journey where people have introduced us to SRE. And as you said, there is some of it going on, or people think there's some of it going on. But what were other than what you're saying here, but any practical examples or any, a day in the life of an SRE versus an ops person that might be useful to bring back?
Thanks for the question. So the question, if I understood correctly, is a practical example of what would SRE do versus an app person or developer?
No,
infrastructure person, right. So, yeah, whatever. So for me, it's that proactivity. And infrastructure person works on in a passive mode, right? You get a ticket, you fix the ticket, and that is job over. That's the usual what I've experienced, right? SRE is a person that, again, from my interpretation, goes proactively to teams and say, hey, well, this stuff doesn't look right. And it might be, for example, we had a problem with circuit breaking logic in one of our applications. And one of our engineers had a really brilliant solution how to minimize impact if the circuit breaker triggers, right? But sometimes there's a communicational barrier that you need to cross between these teams because it is like X operations person, and he's talking to developers about their baby, about their product, right? So there's that difference of actually not just react or like doing work in that passive mode. And by passive mode, I don't mean anything bad. It's just the way it is. I get a ticket, someone tells me to do something, I go do that. But rather proactively look for problems, look for trouble, and not necessarily fix these, like yourself, but raise the awareness about that. Talk to the developers about, hey, you should probably push this up in your backlog because A, B, C, right? That's the main difference. Does it, or at least for me, does it answer the question?
Yeah, it describes some of the behaviors we're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work, lights around the box, okay.
Use the microphone, sorry.
Yeah, it describes some of the behaviors we're seeing. You know, from an infrastructure perspective, the lights are on the box, everything is fine. It's your problem after that.
Yeah, I've been in that environment. I understand. However, yeah, I don't find it like fruitful or good because, you know, this pinging back and forth is just prolonging the problem, right? And you're going to get like tons of new friends if you actually go out and start working with the developers. You find new friends, new perspectives on problems. Like when I started talking to developers and the service owners about their problems, it's a completely different world. It's completely mind-blowing. Like I used to be a storage person. It's green, it's your problem, right? But this attitude doesn't really get us anywhere. Okay.
Anyone else? I have actually a quick one myself. Like, having worked in a place where we went from ops to SRE just in a snap,
yep.
I found one of the issues being convincing the upper layer and management that SRE was a culture that needed to be worked on, and effectively convincing the company to give us time. I'm curious about how did that actually work for you? Because you're clearly advocating for it, but like, are you advocating from you're alone and just trying to change one thing at a time, or are you trying to change the culture within the company?
Well, for example, Unity is really awesome about that because the managers and the leaders there are very forward-thinking, and then they understand that this transition cannot really happen overnight, right? It is about like finding what sort of value. Anytime I'm talking to people in the leadership, I'm always trying to point out the values that you're going to get out of that, right? It's always what do I get out of that, right? So you need to be able to describe these values. You need to be able to, and then you're effectively advocating for it. But yeah, we're talking about the adoption of SRE and like development of SRE within Unity. Like that's a hot topic right now, for example. And I think our leadership really understand that we have Unity SRE managers in the room, so you can like actually go around and ask. But they're like real forward thinkers. I think it's like we see the strategy and we see the path to that goal is not easy.
Thank you. We don't have time for more questions, so thank you again.
Yeah.